Welcome in, Campo and Joe, our postseason Campo and Joe. Josie from XL Primetime, noon to 3 weekdays, right here on the Superstation. My man Dave Campo, former Dallas Cowboy head coach and an assistant here when they were in the playoffs back in the 2000s. Coach, we've got to dig into what I think was a chance of a lifetime to make another AFC championship game for a lot of fans. They came close. They came up short in Kansas City. But what I think you and I are going to do is we're going to be critical about certain things that went on in the game. We're also going to celebrate the season a little bit. Don't you think?
Absolutely. I think this was really, really big for the community as well as the football team and the organization. And I think that's where, you've got to celebrate that, even though it wasn't a perfect season.
Right.
But it was a darn good journey to the destination that the goal is. Mm-hmm. Didn't quite get there, but it certainly was a good journey.
All right. Now, listen, thanks for tuning in or listening to us wherever you catch us on the 1010XL social channels or on Facebook Live. But we figured, we got a lot of off-season talk that we're going to put out there. We're going to try and give Jaguar fans some things to think about. But this one, we figured we'd go back and talk about the game and we'd look at the season as a whole. Because what Coach just said reminded me of what Doug Peterson said. After the game, he does his presser. People are probably listening to it on 1010XL, 92.5 FM. And he basically told Bucky Brooks that the thing he likes the most about the season is that this team, he said the main focus that he had was energizing the city, energizing the fans, and energizing the team. And he feels like that's what he was a big part of. And you got to give him a lot of credit, Coach.
Absolutely. And, of course, we've been saying that. I've been saying it for a while that, going into the first playoff game, the Super Wildcard game, I was over at the tailgate party, the Bull City Brigade, which was wild.
BCB.
The one thing that I tried to tell everybody is this is as big a game for you all as it is for the organization, for the city, for, I was at Cleveland, in my second pro job before I came here.
Right.
And, the fans there and the fans in Jacksonville are very similar.
Yeah.
The city, they crave the win. They crave this team to get going. That's the way they were in Cleveland. Mm-hmm. And it just feels really good to me that the people in this community had this opportunity. Now, we're going to expect it going forward, and that's great. That's where you want to be, is when you expect to do well the next year.
Yeah, you're trying to impress your wife. You do something really impressive, then she's going to expect a little bit more of it.
Absolutely.
We had the bar really low, and then we took
your accountability goes up quickly.
All right, so I just think when we try and sum up this season, and we'll try and do it over the next handful of minutes on our show, but let's go to the Chiefs game. Let's go to Arrowhead now. This was a game that had some back and forth in it. Mahomes goes down to injury. We can talk about the moments that kind of stood out. I just think the gut punch of all gut punches is to see Mahomes go out and see Chad Henne come into the game. And Chad Henne is not a guy that should scare you holding the football, at least not at his age right now. He was nicknamed Check Down Chad, Check Down Henne. Yet, that football team went on a 98-yard drive with a big run and a roughing the passer penalty that led him to the end zone.
Well, that's what I was going to say. 55 yards of that drive were those two things, the roughing the passer and the 40-yard run. Those are mistakes that we made early in the year. Mm-hmm. And I think Doug said that after the game, that some of the ugliness of the early part of the season where we shot ourselves in the foot happened in that game. That's growing pains. Mm-hmm. That's young players not being exactly where they're supposed to be or making a mistake that you can't have.
Right.
Every ball game, 99% of them come down to 4 or 5 plays where they make the difference in the football game. Mm-hmm. That drive, obviously, I would have bet a lot of money that he was not going to be able to take him 98 yards. I could see maybe a field goal, but not go all the way. And it really came down to those two, plus the touchdown pass. They had looked to me like a double on Kelce when he threw it to him in the flat.
Right.
And for some reason they were unsure and they were talking to each other. The ball was snapped and 37 didn't get over the top to get out on him. He was the outside, he and Muma.
Yeah.
And so, there's 3 plays in that drive that made the difference in maybe us tying or winning the football game. And, unfortunately, it just didn't work at that particular time.
It drives you a little crazy when you do think of those isolated moments. And you are right, Coach, that a penalty and a big run. Pacheco had such a big run. Trayvon Walker lost contain. We can point to a few other things defensively. But I think at the end of the day, here are the 3 things, at least for me, Coach. If you think about going into this postseason game, you had a second chance to go play Doug Peterson versus Andy Reid, Trevor Lawrence, an up-and-coming star against Pat Mahomes. The 3 things that will jump out for anybody is the Mahomes injury, and once he came back, they still weren't able to get to him. They did not apply pressure to the quarterback. They could not cover Travis Kelce, and then ultimately the mistakes that this team made at the end of the ball game.
Yeah, I thought they got some pressure early against Mahomes, and Mahomes, I wrote down on when I'm watching a game, I'm making little notes, and one of them was number 15 is spectacular.
Yeah.
Because there were 2 throws in there that we had him. 33 had him in his grasp, and he made a throw for a first down.
And Darius Williams had him in his grasp.
Yeah, correct. So, you really, that unable to handle Kelce more so in the zone game. And to be honest with you, against Mahomes, you had to mix it up. You had to play some man. You had to play some zone. They didn't execute as well as they needed to on Kelce. And then, obviously the mistakes that we just talked about. And there were a couple of others that really hurt us.
Now, I'm going to ask you, and this is going right to the end of the ball game. I'm going to ask you if you're going to be thinking about that more than maybe some of the other things, because the Jamal Agnew fumble, there's a couple things that went into that. Christian Kirk, there's all the discussion about, did he get dinged up? Was he cramping just a little bit where he wasn't on the field? Jamal Agnew was. Was that a fumble or not? Yes, they review every turnover, but did they really, really review it? What did you think?
It was a fumble.
It looked like a football move. It looked like he had control.
Yeah, he made a step and another step and looked to me like he was trying to switch the football or whatever, and it just popped out of his hands.
And if it's ruled a fumble on the field, they're not going to reverse that.
Not
very often.
Not very often.
Yeah.
And, in that case right there, obviously that was a critical one because that would have put us within. We had a chance if he held the ball. We had a chance to put the ball in the end zone and make it a 3-point ball game.
Yeah.
So, unfortunately, you think about that one, but then you forget about the fact that he had 2 returns that were outstanding.
Yeah.
And let me just say something about that. Everybody, it's kind of like the offensive line. When you get a big run, nobody ever says anything about the offensive line.
They don't go, way to go offensive
back.
line?
Yeah, it's the running back did this and that. I've got to give a lot of credit to our special teams guys. Heath Farwell did an outstanding job coaching the special teams this year because there were a lot of situations. Now, he's an outstanding returner.
Right.
Don't get me wrong, but we didn't have a lot of penalties on special teams, which is huge because usually on every kick return there's a holding penalty or a block in the back or whatever.
That's a really good point.
Absolutely. And those guys up front had to do a good job in order to give him an opening, to give him a chance to go. And it's a shame because the kicker got him on the one, or else I think he would have put that one in the end zone. Yeah. And that would have been a huge change in the ball game.
Those 2 kickoff returns, it was fitting that the first one set them up. He's number 39, set him up on the 39. They had a 39-yard drive to score. And then the next one, when they needed it the most, he's up the right sideline on that second return, which was another big one. And so, you can't put a loss at his feet. The other thing that frustrated me a little bit after that was when they do get the ball back, that was around, the 4 or 5 minute mark.
Right.
They do get the ball back, and Trevor throws the pick on that, was it a safety or corner blitz coming at him?
It was a safety blitz inside. It was right up the pipe. We busted that protection.
Yeah, it was just and you can speak on this just in just a second, but the other thing that got me was Zay Jones didn't come back to that ball.
Yeah.
He got turned around. The defender goes up and makes the play. Zay's got to pivot back towards that football.
Come up and get it.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. Well, that one, obviously the guy was absolutely clean.
Mm-hmm.
You would have, there's three ways to look at it. He either could try to make that throw,
right,
which he didn't get everything on it.
True.
He tried to lay it up there, over the top of the guy,
right,
or you eat it or you throw it away.
Mm-hmm.
And, in certain situations, I think Zay had a step on the guy.
He did.
If he'd have got it out there a little bit more, that might have been the same as the first one that they hit for the down the field. So, that was an unfortunate one because not only what you just said, but the DB made an outstanding play. He went up one-handed and brought the thing in. So it was a tough one.
All right, so if we kind of look at this in chunks, and I'll just bring up Travis Kelce right now. He's 33 years of age. This guy is a craftsman. Just Jacksonville got torched by him, 14 catches. He was in the end zone, but he also is not a guy that hasn't torched a lot of other teams,
right.
Okay? Jacksonville's not alone. He, right now, 33 years of age, 110 passes he caught this year, a personal best, and a dozen touchdowns.
Right.
And that guy had an unbelievable season. Obviously, he's not finished yet.
Well, first of all, all the talk around, and we're probably going to talk about today, I'm not sure, but a lot of people would probably not, should we keep Ingram? Should we not keep Ingram? Kelce is a perfect example of a guy that has the whatever it is with the quarterback.
Oh, yeah. That synergy.
And that's so important, when you have to get rid of a ball or you need a play, to have that feeling. He knows, the quarterback knows when he turns his shoulders a certain way where he's going.
Right.
Well, Ingram, I believe, could develop that same thing. I think he's made progress in that area this year. That's the kind of guy you need in critical situations. And the one play to get the first down where they hit Ingram on that crossing route and he ran about 15, 18 yards run after catch, that's one of their number one plays all year. So Kelce's the guy that he goes to when he's in trouble. Plus, he knows if he's getting zone defense, the guy's going to find a way to try to get open.
Yeah. And I feel like just staying on that Ingram topic, and we'll do a lot of free agency going forward, but just on the surface, would you put him, Evan Ingram, re-signing him, or Jawan Taylor trying to make him a priority to come back at that right tackle spot? Where would you land? Again, this is just the beginning of our free agency talk.
I have an opinion on it. My opinion is that the chemistry with the quarterback is extremely important. Now, the right tackle, Jawan, obviously had a good year. Walker Little coming on, that changes it a little bit.
Sure.
Would I like to keep them both? Absolutely. If I could get a long-term deal done under the circumstances, which we're not in great shape on,
right,
I'd keep Jawan because, you got three tackles that can play.
Right.
That's great.
Yeah.
But, the chemistry with Ingram, I don't think it's going to cost you as much. I think he's a guy that you don't want to use a franchise tag unless you have to.
Right.
But if you have to, that's one that I would consider for sure.
He'll get paid well no matter what. He did a one-year deal, kind of bet on himself. This go around, it will pay off. Even if he is tagged, he's still going to get a decent amount of money. But he would love to have that long-term deal. He's at least indicated, and again, this is kind of how we'll attack this free agency. This is not fact or gospel right now. But he's indicated that a chunk of money up front will go a long way to bringing him back.
Right. And I think he'd probably take less money that way.
Yes.
Now, for his future, do I think that's a smart move? Probably not. But it's a move that if he's comfortable with it, let's do it.
Yeah, give me that guaranteed money.
Yeah.
And so we'll see where it goes. But Ingram definitely was a huge bright spot. Now let's just take a look at Trevor Lawrence on the whole. You take a look at the Final Four quarterbacks coach in the AFC. That was the divisional weekend. You had Josh Allen going up against Joe Burrow. Joe Burrow, masterful. And then you had Pat Mahomes going up against Trevor Lawrence. We know just how good Pat Mahomes is. He's shown it. He's a Super Bowl winner. But I made this point in XL Primetime. Doug Peterson and Trevor Lawrence going into the offseason may be a more positive situation than Josh Allen and Sean McDermott going into the offseason. Buffalo, you'd have to say, had a game at home and couldn't win. It got blown out by Cincinnati. That's a huge disappointment.
I agree with you 100% because not only because of a quarterback on the rise in Trevor Lawrence that really, honestly, probably has more skills than Josh Allen does. Josh Allen makes a lot of plays with his feet.
Yeah.
He makes a lot of mistakes.
He turned the ball over a lot.
And I think the ceiling for Trevor might be better than his. Mm-hmm. But also, that's an older football team at Buffalo. With a young team like we have, I think you got to be really happy about where we're at and where we're going forward with the Jacksonville team right now.
Yeah, so let's do the season, a little bit of the season talk, because we were talking about it on our show, 2017 versus 2022. What was the better run for the fan? The fan overwhelmingly voted for the 2022.
Right now.
Yeah,
right.
Which makes a lot of sense because they also saw how it went south in 2018. Everything just came – it sucked.
Right.
It went from this team was 10 minutes from the Super Bowl to guys asking out, Jalen with his hurt back, demanding to get out of town, and Ngakoue and all kinds of stuff.
Right.
We all know it fell flat on its face, and all those guys are basically gone now. Miles Jack was one of the last guys.
Right.
Anyway, this one feels like it's got a potential to last longer.
Yeah, longevity, because first of all, you got young players. Second of all, I don't know anything about the 2017 group. Let me just say that.
You were out coaching Southern Cal.
Yeah, I wasn't here.
Mm-hmm.
This team has a team flavor.
Mm-hmm.
I don't see any egos to the point where it can derail anything. The only thing I see from this team is they got a taste of it. It reminds me so much of the Cowboys back, when we went through that stretch to the first Super Bowl.
Right.
And I'm not saying that we're going to the Super Bowl, but I'm saying that this team has that kind of flavor that, hey, we got something to prove, and we're going to continue to work in that direction. And I can see a great offseason program with this group.
I'm going to ask you this question. I asked Leon this question. It'll probably be one that we ask a bunch. But he has maintained that when players understand what, a nibble of success, the hard work got paid off in a postseason appearance. He believes that players will now come together and say, we want more of this. We have to work together. Do you agree, or does the coach have to push them as well?
First of all, it's harder if they won the Super Bowl to get them going the next year than it is when they didn't quite get there, in my opinion.
Sure, because they'll remain hungry.
Two things happen. When you go to the Super Bowl, they start stealing your players, your players.
True.
When you don't quite get there, you are looking to the top of the mountain, and you know that you were close.
Yeah.
And I truly believe this team, on any given day, you hear this all the time, on any given Sunday, that we could beat anybody in the league. Yeah. I really believe that. We've got enough young athletes. We're not quite there on the defensive side of the ball. On the offensive side of the ball, I think we could be as good as anybody in the league. And, to me, that's great. The players will thrive on that. We'll get excited about it. The energy in the offseason will be that much better.
I'm looking back and I'm thinking about the season, and so many great memories came out of it. All the comeback wins, the double-digit deficits that this team faced, and being a 2-5 club, a 3-7 club, winless 0 for October. What are some of the things that jump out? The ability for them really to turn into a team that, like you just described, they're feared by others instead of them fearing others.
Well, improvement of the quarterback's number one. There's no question that, he's a much different guy after about the fifth or sixth ball game than he was here at the end. He's kind of come into his own, and really the third year, he should make even more of a jump going forward this next year. The other thing is that I think, the addition of those free agents really gave them some weapons,
Mm-hmm.
and not just one weapon, but 3 or 4 weapons.
Right.
And you add ETN in the draft. You've got Ingram that had an outstanding year. Zay Jones and Kirk both had really good years.
Right.
You put that together, then that's what you're seeing that. That's the difference. As the season went on, they all got more familiar with each other.
Right.
They had the belief and the confidence. But, we talk about belief and confidence, and I think that's extremely important. But let's not minimize, we got some good players.
Mm-hmm.
Now defensively, I thought they improved as the year went on, which is a credit to the coaching staff and the players.
Right.
I don't think they're anywhere close to being where they need to be. I think the thrust in the offseason is going to be to firm them up. And then the final thing is, I think we had some players have their best years. Jawan Taylor being one of them.
Yes.
So when you put that all together, you got to feel pretty good about this team.
All right, a couple of others off the text line that we always rely on, designed by Lifetime Enclosures. We'll include some of these off of our show into our Excel or into our Campo and Joe podcast. But I we're going to look at free agency a bunch, but just answer this one since we've already brought up Evan Ingram. How important is it that they re-sign him? And then also when Calvin Ridley walks in the building, does he automatically earn that wide receiver 1 spot?
Well, wide receiver 1 is kind of a media fan thing, because what you're looking for is a receiver that affects the defense to the point where you have to take care of him. Now, a Jamar Chase is a guy that if you don't double up Jamar Chase, he's going to beat you.
Yeah.
You just saw Travis Kelce. He kind of took over the role of Hill, the guy that left.
Yeah, Tyreek. Yeah.
Tyreek. Everybody had to know where Tyreek was.
Yeah.
Well, you got to know where Kelce is. We didn't quite do that in the ball game, so it hurt us. Ridley coming in is going to have to earn that, and that is chemistry with the quarterback and his athletic ability. If he plays like he did when he first came into the league, then he's probably a guy that's going to affect the defense more than anybody else.
Right.
So that's the answer to that question.
Yeah. It's just taking another guy with you.
Yeah.
In the defense.
Yeah. And now, as far as Ingram is concerned, I've already mentioned, I think the chemistry with the quarterback is a guy that you can count on when things break down or when they have to get something within that intermediate range. He's a guy that can do that, and he's an excellent run after catch guy. And that's important because, you don't have time for every ball to go 20, 25 yards down the field.
Right.
With the defenses today, with the ability of the defensive linemen and the blitzing and all this stuff, the athletes on the defensive side of the ball, you got to have some guys that you can get the ball to when they can run after they catch it and make first downs and give you big yardage.
All right, so let's just wrap up with this, and we'll just look back at this playoff game. Like we said, we'll get into free agency next week, but you as a coach, I just want to bring this up. Andy Reid is now a 20 playoff game winning head coach. 20 playoff wins. He has a Super Bowl. He's now taking a team to 5 straight AFC championship games. The other stat that blew my mind, Coach, and it's so obvious, but you just don't think about it, Pat Mahomes has not lost a playoff game on the road. You want to know why? Because they don't need to go on the road.
Haven't he?
Think about that. And that's where you want to be.
Yeah.
Andy Reid's special.
Yeah. Well, of course, he's been an outstanding.
He tied Tom Landry, I believe, with now 20 playoff wins.
Yes. Obviously he's a Hall of Fame guy. I mean, he's taken teams to the Super Bowl. He's won the Super Bowl. The guy is a consistent evaluator. And, you look at his coaching tree out there, his leadership is outstanding. And I thought it was interesting when I heard the announcers in the ballgame make the comment that the players on his team are all involved. Sometimes they make up their own plays. He trusts his guys if he trusts them.
Right.
He really trusts them. It reminds me of Jimmy Johnson from the standpoint that Jimmy trusted the assistant coaches.
Right.
If they said something, he trusted them more than anybody else even in looking at a guy maybe that a scout has seen 7 times and that assistant coach has seen 1 time, he trusts those guys. He does the same thing with his players. The players like him, very much like Doug Peterson, I think. That team atmosphere is there, and he's just one of those guys that has a way of getting guys to play for him, and they do.
Yeah, I'm glad you mentioned Doug, because let's bring it full circle as we wrap it up. Doug has that same potential.
I think he does.
Yeah,
and he's on that tree.
Yeah, I feel like that it's so cliche. When we mention culture, we mention the idea of a family, a fraternity, but it's real. Sometimes, how does it become a cliche? Because it's real, it's legit, and you don't always need to coach fire and brimstone style. You mentioned Reed letting his guys be a part of it because they had fun, and this group does seem like they're having fun.
Absolutely, and that's this group, And I think when you look at the whole picture of the thing, I think we've got some good young athletes that are going to be on the come. And then you got a staff and a coaching, a head coach that they believe in. That just goes a long way towards having a chance to get better every year going forward, along with the experience of being together. Yeah,
it's awesome. I know Jaguar fans out there are pretty fired up. We're fired up. We'll keep it going all off season. Campo and Joe, free agency talk next week.
Yeah, boy, I got to start getting into it because that's the name of the game. They've got to get a few spots cleaned up and go forward.
I already know what we're going to argue about first: pass rush versus cover help. So that'll be one of the first things we get into. Coach, enjoyed it as always.
Absolutely.
Joe C., Dave Campo, thanks for tuning in to Campo and Joe.